I don't tend to idolize specific directors because I'm in the camp that everyone has the same basic understanding of the craft of filmmaking if they've made it to that level of the industry, and to each their own. They will hone in on specific styles or quirks and excel at those, ensuring a very specific experience for that audience. For example, Quentin Tarantino is great at crafting very engaging scenes and sequences through expert pacing and quick editing. But his characters often fail at eliciting true empathy. That's just me. They're pretty much just dialogue vessels. On the other side of the spectrum, you have your Ron Howards, who know how to tell a 3-act story, but bore me to tears with everything else. Don't at me. You wouldn't go to a fancy upscale restaurant, bar, and grill and expect their burgers to be the same quality as McDonald's, or vice versa. But I know people that genuinely love the taste of McDonald's burgers. Adam McDonald is my McDonald's burger. I didn't even plan that. He has 2 low-budget indie horror films under his belt, but even this early on, he's made a lot of impacts working with his limitations. For this essay, I'm focusing on his last film, Pyewacket, the story of a teenage girl who summons a witch to kill her mom. I wish you were dead! I swear I'm not messed up. McDonald takes a completely different, very lax approach to his stories he tells, which I will now outline in a numbered list, but I will not follow through with that format for the rest of the video. Number 1, his lack of artistic cinematography. It's pretty basic, but gets the point across. Nothing metaphorical, barely any weird, obscure setups. That and his shot setups are mainly either wides or close-ups, tend to give off the vibe of disassociation. We're making this character seem extremely small, isolated, and most importantly, he doesn't let up on that. At number 2, his dialogue is annoyingly simple and to the point, and makes me pay attention more to the feel of the scene rather than what information he's trying to get across deliberately. It's Lynchian without being overbearingly so. And number 3, he's relentless in keeping the POV on his protagonists. There's not an unnecessary scene in the film. Everything is centered on our protagonist's journey, and we see other little arcs happen outside that bubble, but they're only as important as to how they impact our main story, or we see what could have been. It really helps us understand and empathize with our lead, which is kind of necessary considering the premise. Back to the lighting and cinematography, it's only as complex as the setting of the film. A lone cabin in the middle of the woods. We hardly ever have a clean frame that our protagonist Leah is not dirtying up, especially in the early scenes establishing how she both views her mother, as well as how she feels about being tethered to her. There's heavy light and dark contrast, whether that be in between scenes or in the same shot. One of my favorite scenes in the film breaks literally every rule on lighting. At the midpoint, Leah and her friend Janice investigate the spot where she first performed the ritual, and the only light in the scene comes from their phone flashlights. Without going needlessly in depth with the analysis, that's an approach that I've never seen before, or even known anyone bold enough to try. It's real, raw, and powerful. Like anything can happen at any moment. That's the best aspect of his technical prowess, but let's dive into how he crafts the actual story. Everyone knows and understands that you act differently around different people or in different settings, so why do scenes always need an initial conflict to set the tone? Pyewacket's core conflict comes from the contrast between what Leah confesses around her friends versus what she confesses around her mother. That dramatic irony hangs over the scene from the get-go and is emphasized with her body language and how that instantaneously shifts. Recently, I've been trying to capture a feeling of dread from my aesthetics alone, like in Pyewacket, by playing with light and dark contrasts, lingering on characters past their line, emulating pauses of awkward silence, mainly to show why characters stop talking when they do.
He was depressed. He killed himself in the story. They never found a body.
That makes it better?
Who said he was suicidal?
Everybody.
Why do you have to off himself here?
Hey, can you shut up? You scared the Wendigo's gonna get you next?
That's not real.
Then where do you think his body went? Look, as far as I'm concerned, some answer is better than none.
I shot my last film nearly completely using handheld to give the subtle note to my audience that at every moment they should be on edge. Lastly, I admire McDonald's approach to dialogue, which is filled with hiccups, stutters, repetition, and the like.
This can't be it, right? Can you look at me, please?
Just let me think.
Much like Baumbach or Sorkin, but not nearly as fetishized. All in all, McDonald's approach to filmmaking makes it feel like I'm not even watching a film. It's an amateur feel that evokes a sense of authenticity, empathy. His nonchalance toward the actual craft and standard techniques allow both he and I as an audience member to zero in on what I believe is the cornerstone to a good film, real compelling characters that I can see genuinely changing throughout the story. Try not to spoil a lot of it, just give it a chance. Even if the story doesn't stick with you, I have a feeling that the feeling will linger.